The Pacific coastal migration theory presents a compelling narrative for the initial peopling of the Americas, suggesting that ancient humans traversed a coastal route, predating the opening of an ice-free corridor in North American ice sheets. This theory, although informally discussed for over 50 years, had largely been overlooked until recent research endeavors aimed to define and substantiate it. One intriguing facet contributing to the growing acceptance of the coastal migration theory is the presence of Native American creation myths describing human arrival to the Western Hemisphere by sea. Such narratives, rooted in indigenous oral traditions, offer cultural support to the notion of a coastal migration route. Archaeological findings from the University of Victoria's discovery on Tree Island in 2017 provide tangible evidence aligning with these myths. Radiocarbon dating of the hearth on the island, estimated to be between 13,613 and 14,086 years old, supports local First Nation oral history traditions of ancient habitation during the Ice Age. Anecdotal evidence comes from the surviving Bella Bella oral tradition, as recorded by Franz Boas in 1898. In the beginning, there was nothing but water and ice and a narrow strip of shoreline. Some believe the story describes the environment of the northwest coast during the last deglaciation. Beyond mythology and archaeological discoveries, the coastal migration theory draws support from various lines of evidence scattered across the Americas. For instance, along the western coast, notable sites like California's Channel Islands and Monteverde in southern Chile hint at the plausibility of a kelp highway facilitating early human migration. The concept of a maritime route is further bolstered by intriguing speculation of a migration from southwestern France to the Americas, coinciding with the presence of the Solutrean culture and the resemblance of their spear points to Clovis points. However, dating the initial coastal migration poses significant challenges due to the inundation of early settlement sites by rising sea levels. Despite these obstacles, discoveries in southeast Alaska and British Columbia provide crucial insights into early human occupation and resource utilization during this pivotal period. Dates for sites such as the one at Groundhog Bay, southeast Alaska, 10,200 years ago, and Namu, about 800 kilometers south of Groundhog Bay, 9.7 thousand years ago, represent early mainland settlement above the present-day sea level after earlier waterborne migration, while the sea level was lower and the coastal mainland was still covered in ice. These regions offer glimpses into the past, shedding light on the ecological conditions that shaped early coastal communities. While the coastal migration hypothesis faces skepticism from some quarters, mounting evidence continues to bolster its credibility. Advances in multidisciplinary research, encompassing archaeology, genetics, and ecology, contribute to a deeper understanding of the complex processes involved in the peopling of the Americas. Evidence from southeast Alaska and Haida Gwaii, Queen Charlotte Islands, in British Columbia provides some data about food and land resources during early settlement. Researchers have identified several sites on Haida Gwaii that date to post 9,000 years ago. The oldest human yet found on the west coast of North America are from On Your Knees Cave in Prince of Wales Island in southeast Alaska. The young man, in his early 20s when he died, has been dated to about 10,000 years before present, and isotopic analyses indicate that he was raised on a diet primarily of marine foods. These data suggest human occupation when the sea level was lower than present, and that submerged archaeological sites could occur along the Paleo coastline beyond the current shorelines of Haida Gwaii and southeast Alaska. between 13,000 and 10,500 years ago, Haida Gwaii had easily double its current land area. It was flooded with the rapid rise in sea level around 10,000 years ago. Any evidence of initial human occupation on the paleo coastline of Haida Gwaii would now be below sea level. Older sites that are located near our modern shorelines would have been a dozen miles from the coast. Archaeological and genetic evidence suggests the first humans arrived in North America between approximately 26,000 and 16,000 years ago. The refined time frames for the migration suggest that the first Americans adapted to both winter sea ice and summer kelp forest habitats, contrary to previous assumptions of solely summer sea travel along the kelp highway. Numerous archaeological sites from the Pacific Northwest to Baja California corroborate the coastal migration theory. Research in the North Pacific has contributed to establishing early coastal colonization data. In California, sites such as Borax Lake, the Cross Creek site, and locations along the Santa Barbara Channel Islands and coast offer evidence of human settlement between 12,000 and 7,000 years before present. Discoveries of ancient animal remains, including goat and bear on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, and even older remnants in Prince of Wales Archipelago in southeast Alaska, indicate abundant land and floral resources capable of supporting large mammals and possibly human populations. Supporters of the coastal colonization theory propose that coastal areas were likely settled before 13,000 years ago, citing evidence such as watercraft sightings from Japan and dietary clues from Indonesian middens indicating offshore fishing around 35,000 to 40,000 years ago. The presence of seagoing cultures in the island-rich environment of East Asia, coupled with climate warming around 16,000 years ago, may have spurred seaborne migration towards North America via the Kuril Islands chain. Although no boats have been unearthed from early Pacific coast sites, artifacts found on islands suggest ancient water travel. Further evidence of early seafaring comes from California's Channel Islands, where numerous sites dating to the terminal Pleistocene have been discovered. These include the Arlington Man site, dating to approximately 11,000 years ago, and Daisy Cave, occupied around 10,700 years ago. Marine shellfish remains associated with kelp forest have been uncovered in Channel Island sites, along with stone tools and shell middens dating back to about 10,000 years ago. Despite not being connected to the mainland during the Quaternary, the Channel Islands were colonized by maritime people who used seaworthy boats, evidenced by the discovery of the earliest fish hooks in Americas, dating back to around 8,500 to 9,000 years ago. The paleo-coastal settlers of the Channel Islands utilized finely crafted stemmed points and chipstone crescents, resembling those found in Western stemmed tradition sites across Western North America. Similar stem point stone technology is widespread across North America, dating back to various periods. For instance, artifacts from the Deborah L. Fridkin site in Buttermilk Creek, Texas, are dated to approximately 13,500 to 15,500 years ago. Stemmed projectile points found at the nearby Galt site, dating to around 16,000 years ago, predate the Clovis occupation horizon. In locations like Cooper's Ferry, Idaho, and Paisley Caves, Oregon, similar projectile points date to approximately 12,700 to 13,000 years ago, shortly after the earliest occupation in Oregon. At Meadowcroft Rock Shelter in Pennsylvania, the Miller Point, resembling Western stem tradition, dates to around 14,000 years ago. Stemmed projectile points associated with mammoth bones have been found at Santa Isabel, Itzapan, Mexico, dating to a similar period. In South America, a tradition of stemmed points, known as El Hobo points, has been identified. These later evolved into stemmed fishtail points. Evidence of human presence dating back to around 12,500 years before present has been discovered at the Monteverde site, considered one of the earliest settlements in South America, dating to at least 14,500 years ago. El Hobo points at Monteverde indicate their use as early as approximately 14,200 years ago, with their widespread adoption across South America around 13,000 years ago, suggesting migration through northern coastal regions. The site also yielded remains of 9 types of seaweeds, including kelp, further supporting the coastal migration hypothesis. While the coastal migration theory remains subject to ongoing scrutiny and refinement, it represents a compelling framework for understanding the initial human colonization of the Americas. As researchers continue to uncover new evidence and refine existing theories, our understanding of ancient migration patterns and the peopling of the Americas will undoubtedly evolve.